Here we go. All right. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, I should say. Thank you so much for having me here today to come in for the Hive's Wellness Wednesday series. RX Recourse is really excited to be here, and we're going to be bringing to you today our Fundamentals of Nutrition Health workshop. Now, I'm Coach DJ. I've met a lot of you. I've met all of you, actually. I am from RX Recourse, and we help build comprehensive health and wellness programs for organizations of various sizes to ensure that employee health and wellness is prioritized. Now, we do this through the use of health workshops like this one that we are going through today. And we also do this through wellness challenges, newsletters, and more in order to help your employees work and live better. Now, with that being said, we're going to be talking about the fundamentals of nutrition. So kindly note that this is just a small intro into the world of nutrition, and individually, our nutrition is going to be as unique to each and every one of us. So this is to help you gain a better understanding of potentially where to start, or to even just start thinking about your nutrition. Now, like I mentioned previously, I do have an instruction slide here for you. This is going to be an interactive workshop today. So if you could take a moment, if you haven't done so already, head over to menti.com and you can scan the QR code, or you can go over through your browser and input the numeric code that is there. It's also going to remain at the top of your screen, your shared screen, so that you can access it whenever. Okay, this is going to allow you to interact with our workshop today, so that I do have questions coming up for you. So I would like to see some responses come in. Okay. Now I'm going to turn this over to you. I would like to know from you what you find challenging when it comes to healthy eating or with your own personal nutrition. So take a minute here, let me know some of the things that you have struggled with in the past, that you're currently struggling with, or you're curious about, or you find challenging. Staying full, okay, that's a big one.
I posted in the chat. I didn't know if you wanted in the chat or you want me to raise my hand or.
So Monica, I'm gonna have you head over to menti.com. on a separate browser page, and then you can input the numeric code, and that's going to allow you to participate in our workshop today.
Okay.
Okay. So take a second. I'll give you guys a little bit more time here to input your responses. So again, anything that you find challenging with healthy eating or your personal nutrition. I eat healthy all day, but I get hungry after dinner and crave salty or sweet treats. Okay. Tired when I get home and don't want to cook. That's a big one. We all live really, really busy lives, so this can be quite challenging. Perfect. So we are going to talk a little bit about food prep and how to do that. Eating too late. There is a common misconception about eating too late. And vegan and gluten-free and everyone else is not. That's tough. So dietary restrictions as well and maneuvering through that. These are amazing. So again, we're going to tackle some of these items here, and then I can tackle some of the questions that you may have one-on-one. But again, this is just an intro to our fundamentals of nutrition and really talking about what it is that we need on a day-to-day basis in order for us to be fueled accordingly. Now, all of these comments that you have posted, thank you so much for posting them. They are all very, very common items that come up in our discussion surrounding food. So staying full, eating healthy all day, but getting hungry after dinner and those cravings start to come. When you're tired and you get home after work and you're not really feeling like you want to cook. There are a variety of different methods in which you can start to implement in your day-to-day in order to make life a little bit easier for you so that you can continue to be successful in your eating. Now, our objectives today, we're going to be talking about a variety of different topics. And if you do have questions at any point, please feel free to pop off onto the mic, or you can save it for our Q&A at the end of the session. So we're going to be talking about how to keep food simple, what good, I'm going to put those in air quotes, food choices mean, what whole foods are, We're going to talk about the 80% versus 20%. We're going to look at habit changes in relation to food, the healthy plate method, and then finally some food journaling. Now, question to you again, what does healthy eating mean to you? So we're straying away from the challenges that you may have, but when you think about healthy eating, what are the first things that come to mind? Let me know. Anything at all. It could be buzzwords, it could be whatever you can think of. What does healthy eating mean to you? Content, fresh food, happy. I like that there is an emotion associated to that. That's fantastic. Yes. Anything else here, ladies and gentlemen? Okay. So again, try to think, I want you to think about what healthy eating means to you as we go on, and that definition may change as we go on. So as more responses come in, we're talking about fruits, vegetables, whole grains, fresh food, being happy, content, yes. So all really positive items that you have associated with healthy eating. Now, let's get right into it. So whenever I discuss food with any clients, any organizations, I like to make it as simple as possible because healthy eating and good nutrition doesn't have to be overly complicated. It's actually quite simple. So when we think about healthy eating, I want you to think about this quote here. And the quote is, I eat meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, and little to no sugar. Now, again, when figuring out to eat on a day-to-day basis, we want to keep things simple. We live very busy lives, as mentioned previously. So the easier and more simple it is, the easier it is for us to continue to consume healthier options of our meals. Now, obviously, there is an asterisk beside meat because, like everyone knows, not all of us are meat eaters. So for those who don't eat meat, you're looking at a variety of other protein options, such as tempeh, tofu, beans, lentils, split peas, black-eyed peas, fish. Now, keep in mind that food is our fuel. We're using food to ensure our cells thrive and communicate with each other properly so that our body can function at its absolute best. Now, when we fail to fuel our bodies with whole food sources or with good quality foods, that's when we start to see some detrimental side effects. So some of those side effects include things like fatigue or feeling lethargic, bodily reactions, so things like acne, rashes, same with bloating. So bloating is a very significant and common reaction to foods that our bodies are essentially not agreeing with because it's just rejecting almost. It's not an allergic reaction, that's a little bit different, but oftentimes you'll see, for example, if we consume large quantities of dairy, for some of us, if we are slightly lactose intolerant, you'll notice that there's a little bit of bloating there. Maybe it's with really high sugar drinks or high sugar foods. You'll start to feel that, especially with candy bars and things like that, feeling that really, really drive of a high. You feel super energetic really, really quickly. And then all of a sudden that results in a really detrimental crash. So things like that to take note of. Now, just a question to think of on your own is this. Have you ever taken a quick moment to recognize how your body is feeling after eating a specific type of food? Now, many of us don't make the distinctions. Many of us don't make the physical distinctions because it's not a habit that we have yet created. So a personal example is bread for me. I do still eat small, very small quantities of bread every so often, but anytime I do eat it, I have that bloating occur and I feel very, very uncomfortable. So little things like that, taking notes of how you're feeling physically and mentally after eating a specific type of food is going to help you recognize what foods may not be in agreement with you. Okay. Again, it doesn't have to be done overnight. This takes a little bit of trial and error. And I always advise the help of a coach, a nutrition coach, a registered dietitian, in order to get to that place where you understand what foods work best and what foods may not work best for you. Now, with that being said, let's talk about good food choices. So when we talk about good food, we've put quotations around good because all food is essentially good. We are trying to make a conscious effort to include a lot of colorful vegetables. So we're eating the rainbow here. We're trying to obtain a good amount of protein sources and from whole food protein sources. And we're going to talk about what whole foods are in just a second. And we're also incorporating small amounts of starchy carbohydrates. Not all carbs are bad. The vast majority of the time, the reason carbs are associated with things like weight gain and it being super unhealthy is because we consume too much of it. So when we get to our healthy plate method later on in this workshop, we're going to take a look at the fact that we do encourage you to eat starchy carbohydrates, but in a controlled quantity. And then finally, we still want to eat healthy fats. We do want fat in our diet. A lot of our bodily functions require fat in order for us to thrive. So things like our brain uses fat and other areas there. So again, we're trying to be conscious of incorporating a good variety of vegetables, protein sources, carbohydrate sources, and your fats in each meal. Okay. Now, I'm turning over the question over to you, and I want to know what kind of misconceptions have you come across with the topic of healthy eating? Let me know. What is something that you may have heard in the past that you feel like is a misconception or something that you may still believe? And that's okay. But what are some misconceptions that you have come across with the topic of healthy eating? I feel like the topic of all carbs are bad are going to come up, and I will reassure you they are not all bad. But yes, let me know. Take a second, put in your responses here. Anything at all that comes to mind.
Hey there, DJ. Just want to make sure I did respond. So I'm not sure if you've seen it or I'm not hitting the submit button.
I don't think you've hit the submit button, Monica. It's not popping up on my screen just
Because
yet.
it says it received your input, add another above.
Okay.
And okay, bizarre.
All good, all good. It might just take a second to pop up here. Okay. Monica, do you mind sharing what misconceptions you have about healthy eating just on the mic here?
Sure. That it's too expensive to eat healthy and that it takes too long to prep.
Okay, yes, that's a big one. So the expense part. So a lot of the time, healthy eating is associated with expenses just because you are purchasing a little more frequently than you would. Yes, the expensive portion. The big thing here is that healthy eating doesn't have to be overly expensive. There are a variety of different ways in which you can incorporate whole food sources like your fruits and vegetables that don't break the bank. So a big one that I recommend to a lot of my clients is this: head over to the freezer section. Okay, we're not talking about the freezer, the pre-prepared meals. We're talking about all of the flash frozen fruits and vegetables that you can purchase in large quantities. And the reason that I recommend that is because they are flash frozen when they are at their ripest. So they are very nutrient dense, and it's a super easy way to get in all of your fruits, vegetables in each meal and make it really, really quick for you. So for example, if you're making a stir fry, you're home from work, you don't have a whole lot of time, nor do you want to spend a whole lot of time on your meals, you can just throw in a handful of those vegetables from your freezer section. That's one way to do it. Another way, there's a lot of different apps out there. I highly recommend an app called Flip, so F-L-I-P-P. And what that does, it consolidates all of the grocery flyers, or all flyers for that matter, and you can take a look at what's on sale and things like that. That also helps with your pre-planning of your grocery list so that we're not kind of blindly grabbing whatever when we go shopping, but it also allows you to take a look at pricing comparisons and such at different places. So frozen isn't as good. Thank you. I'm glad I went over the frozen stuff, but yes, frozen, again, the pre-made meals are a little bit different because yes, they are pumped with different items, but a lot of the flash frozen fruits and vegetables, fantastic sources of getting whole foods into your meal if you need to add a little bit more. Takes too much effort. So here is a prep tip for you. Your fruits and vegetables, cut, wash, contain them, or put them in containers in your fridge so that during the week you have less prep to do for each of your meals. Now, the wash and prep maybe will take you half an hour if we just kind of buckle down to it. If you're the type of person that's looking to do a full meal prep, that might take a little bit longer. But again, all your raw vegetables, just quickly chop, wash, chop, and put them in containers so that you have easy access. It also allows you to have easy access to whole food snacks. So yes, bland food. Let's talk about this. Healthy eating doesn't have to be bland. This is what our spices are here for. So getting creative with your spice blends, trying different things are all good ways to make your food a little bit more exciting. And can't eat out. This is where we talk about balance. Now, when I'm working with nutrition clients or organizations, we try to find a happy medium between eating really well the majority of the time and then having a treat meal. Now, I do not use the term cheat meal because you are not cheating on anything. You are essentially giving yourself an opportunity to have a meal that you may enjoy that may fall out of the scope of your particular diet or food habit. So again, you are allowed to eat out. It's just a matter of frequency. Okay, so finding that balance there. And then the no meat. Yeah, so again, it's all based on your personal dietary restrictions or your personal dietary choices. There are a lot of protein sources out there that I listed previously that help with the no meat option, where you can still obtain good amounts of protein in there in your day-to-day diet. So again, you can still, you can get really creative with how you eat. It's just a matter of finding the items that will fill your macronutrients, so your protein, carbohydrates, and fats, in order to fulfill your day. So I hope that kind of eases your mind with regards to the misconceptions of healthy eating. Okay, let's talk whole foods. Now, making smart choices when picking what you're eating on a day-to-day basis will make a really large impact on how you feel overall, how your body metabolizes food, and how you perform in life, at work, at the gym, etc. Now, when we're talking about smart choices, it doesn't necessarily mean weighing your food or only eating salads. A smart choice is this conscious effort to ensure you're eating enough whole foods to keep you satisfied. And like we mentioned before in our good food choices, it includes a lot of colorful vegetables, good sources of protein, a small amount of starchy carbs, and a touch of fat. Now, whole foods, when we talk about this, we're not talking about the grocery store, although it is a wonderful place. We're talking about foods that are minimally processed. They have little to no added sugars and little to no added preservatives. Essentially, when we look at those ingredients lists, less is more. When we think of whole food sources, you're thinking of your fresh produce section. You know, again, you see all of those colorful vegetables. There's generally no ingredients lists tacked onto the product, and the shelf life of a lot of these items is about a week or less. Now, the easiest way to go about this, and you've probably heard about this grocery shopping method before, is shop on the outskirts of your grocery store. So head towards your meat, produce, freezer, dairy sections. Everything else in between, for the most part, not all, but for the most part, is filled with highly processed foods that have incredibly long ingredients lists with a lot of ingredients that are unknown to us. They have shelf lives that exceed a year, and they're filled with preservatives in order to maintain that shelf life. Now, realistically, grocery shopping more than once a week, more than twice a week, I should say, may be challenging for each and every one of us. So again, like I mentioned previously, the freezer section is a fantastic option to head to when looking for those additional fruits and vegetables because they are flash frozen at their ripest. So if you feel like you're lacking in a little fruit or a little vegetable during the day, we're just grabbing a handful and throwing it into our meals. Super easy. So again, whole foods, minimally processed, no added sugars, little to no preservatives. And when we look at the ingredients list, less is more. Or if it doesn't have an ingredients list, it should be good to go. Okay, that's what we're talking about when we talk whole food sources. Now let's talk about the 80-20 here. So a lot of us have probably heard about the 80-20 rule. It's a little bit different than that. And what we're talking about in the world of food is that 80% of what we're consuming during a day or during the week is our healthy food options or our whole food options. So our meals consist of a protein source, a starchy carb source, lots of fruits or lots of vegetables, I should say, and some fats. When we talk about the 20%, we're talking about that balance portion. We had a comment before talking about, a misconception being you can't eat out. So the 20% encompasses that, that one treat meal that you may treat yourself to. Now, when we break this down into a day, so 80% of, let's say, 4 meals. So we're talking three main meals, so breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and potentially a snack in there. 80% would be about 3.2 meals or snacks that are consistent and consistently include your proteins, fats, carb sources. So, a good chunk of whole foods there. Whereas the other 20%, which is 0.8 of your meals or your snacks, will consist of that balance option. So something that's a little bit of a treat. So when we're looking at this, it may look like this. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner would be, a big plate of vegetables, a good source of protein, whatever protein source you'd like, a little starchy carb, and some healthy fat. So that could be in the form of avocado, olive oil, in your dressing, etc. Your 20% may be a small piece of chocolate after dinner to satisfy that sweet craving. I did see a salty craving, so it may be a small handful of like a rice chip or something like that, that satisfies both that crunch and that salty. So again, trying to figure out what your 80% looks like and what your 20% looks like, and ensuring that there's some kind of balance. Now, oftentimes what happens with the 80-20 is that our 80% of what's supposed to be, whole food sources and, good choices turns into 20%, and our balance portion where we treat ourselves turns into the 80. So it almost flips. So we have to be honest when we implement this, and a way in which we can do that is through food journaling, which we're going to talk about a little bit later today. So 80-20, it's giving you a rough estimate on the frequency in which you can incorporate those small treats there versus in staying within the parameters of whole food sources for the majority of your meals. Now let's talk habit changes. Now, the habit loop requires 3 main elements. And this applies not only to food changes, but to many other habit changes that we have in our day-to-day. Now, as human beings, we are creatures of habit, and oftentimes we're very reluctant to make drastic changes in our habits because it places us outside of what is really comfortable in our minds or what we're used to. What we see as the norm, we should say. When we come to understand how habits are created and what fuels those habits, it makes it a little bit easier to make really minor adjustments so that we don't get caught up in a vicious of poor cycles. Again, this is not to say that once you implement a habit change, it's going to be successful right from the get-go. I'm sure that we have all experienced trying to implement a small change in our lifestyle, whether it be adding in more physical activity, maybe it is food related, maybe there's a change at work that could kind of throw us off of what is comfortable, and it's hard to get into that loop. So reminding ourselves that we have to consistently practice the same habit for a prolonged period of time in order to make it a part of our day-to-day. Now, the three main areas in our habit loop include the reminder, the routine, and the reward. Now, the reminder is our visual trigger. It could be an emotional response. It could be a verbal cue. It's anything that triggers us to go through our habit loop. So I'm going to give you an example here. Let's say we are working from home and you take a quick look at your watch or your time on your computer and you establish that it's time to prep dinner or it's time for dinner. The routine part of your habit loop looks at the action which is taken once a reminder has been received. So this is your actual habit itself. So going back to our example, you are reminded that it is 6 o'clock, you want to prep for dinner, so you get up, you make dinner, and you plant yourself on the couch or turn on the TV as background noise. Okay, that is your routine there. And then finally, we have our reward. The reward is exactly what it sounds like. It represents or are the feelings of comfort, satisfaction, happiness, fulfillment, whatever it is that you may feel after going through your routine. There's some kind of an emotional attachment, even if we don't recognize what that emotional attachment is, that arises out of completing your routine here. So the question that you're asking yourself when you're trying to make some habit changes is, what is it that you are seeking? So we start backwards. Now, going back to our example, so we know that our reminder is taking a look at our clock. We know that our routine is we make dinner and then we immediately plant ourselves in front of the couch or we turn on the TV as background noise. Now, studies have shown that utilizing TV as a distraction or sitting in front of the couch while you're eating generally will make you eat more because you're not 100% focused on what is being consumed at the time. So the focus is now on the entertainment playing in front of you. So your brain fails to process the quantity that you're consuming. So we have a tendency to overeat. Now, why is this important? When we begin to recognize our reminders and our routines along with our rewards, we can quickly begin to recognize where we can make some small changes within the habit loop itself in order to still get that initial reward or the final reward, but just change the routine just a little bit. Now, going back to our example, a very simple and minor change in that habit loop would be to sit at the dinner table while you're eating dinner, as opposed to planting yourself on front of the couch. Now, the first couple times that you do this, it's going to be a little uncomfortable if you are consistently, eating in front of the TV. It's a little bit different. However, by sitting at the dinner table, it allows you to enjoy your meal. It allows you to be aware of the quantity of food that is going in, and it avoids binge eating due to the lack of distraction. So you're really honing in on how you're feeling. So whether you're feeling full, whether you need a little bit more, you can hone in on some of those emotions and tune into that. Now, one of the most important things when making a habit change in any realm, so nutrition, lifestyle, etc., is to make the change as minimal as possible and practice the same change for up to 3 months in order for it to become more routine. A lot of the time, you do not need to make a drastic change that will uproot your entire life in order to see changes. It could be as simple as, like in our example, just not sitting in front of the couch and planting yourself at the dining room table. If we're talking about implementing things like adding more exercise into your day-to-day, setting a small goal of getting outside for 30 minutes, whether it be through a walk, a jog, playing outside with your kids, that could be the way in which it becomes a habit over time. Now, again, I just want to reemphasize, when we are trying to make habit changes, we're not looking to uproot your life. We're not trying to, change a variety of different things that are occurring all at once. We want to go one at a time. And that may not be super exciting. However, it's going to set you up for success in the long term. And the same goes when we're trying to make food-related habit changes as well. Okay. So now I'm going to turn this over to you. I want to know from you, what are some food-related habits that you're finding challenging right now? If you're open to sharing, let me know. What is something that you may be struggling with, that you have tried to implement, or just overall eating habits that you're finding challenging tackling? And let's talk about it. Having seconds at dinner. Okay, we're going to talk about the plate method, and that's going to help out. Eating breakfast. Are we talking like not eating breakfast or trying to eat breakfast? Snacking at night. Awesome. Yep. That's a common one. Feeling like eating something else that you have already planned to make. Okay. If there's junk food, I can't control myself. All right. It's a big one. Okay, so all of these are really, really common. So let's start with having seconds at dinner. So sometimes this could be due to a variety of different things. It could be because you haven't built the habit of honing in on when you're full, when you're satiated, or it could just be that you're not eating enough throughout the day. That can be assessed through a little bit of food journaling, not measuring, weighing, but just kind of seeing what your day-to-day looks like for a consistent amount of time, just to make sure that you are eating an appropriate amount of food. Contrary to popular belief, like, yes, we need to be in a caloric deficit if we're trying to lose weight, but you also need to eat enough so that your body can sustain itself. So sometimes when we get to that point, it could go of two ways here. So it's either we haven't built the habit of recognizing when we're full and we just tend to overeat. So that's something we can evaluate. Or it could be that we're not eating enough throughout the day to support just our base function. So there's a couple different things there. Eating breakfast. If we're talking about trying to incorporate breakfast, this is all dependent on individual. There are many people out there who generally don't eat breakfast, and that's okay. If you are someone who functions well with 2 meals a day that are maybe a little bit larger because you're skipping out on breakfast, that's okay too. It's all dependent on your lifestyle. If you're someone who, you don't have to force it down if that's not the way it's going to go, but if it's affecting how you're feeling throughout the day, there are different ways in which you can implement a little bit more food throughout the day, as opposed to just trying to sit there and shovel breakfast in your mouth in the morning. Okay. Snacking at night. This is a big one. Snacking is just in general a big thing. A lot of the times it is out of boredom. So it's understanding and learning when your body has enough throughout the day. And this is through a little bit of experimentation, or we're finding other options for snacking. So A client of mine that I have been working with for over a year now, she had the issue of snacking at night as well. And what we did was we increased a little bit of her protein intake throughout the day so that she wasn't feeling as hungry in the evening. That curbed her hunger, it curbed her snacking. But then on the nights that she did want to have a snack, she had some other options available to her. So she didn't grab, the junk food that she had in her cupboards. She instead went for things like carrots and hummus, like you said, Charlotte, earlier, that you have right now. She went for things like a Greek yogurt that's a little bit higher in protein, just some healthier options for you so that you don't feel terrible the next day. Feeling like eating something else that you've already planned to make. That happens, it does. You slave away at a meal and then all of a sudden you don't feel like eating it. That is just something that we kind of have to work through. Getting excited for your meals. Sometimes pre-planning can be super mundane, but every so often I'll plan a really exciting meal that I am excited for. And I look forward to it. So it doesn't always have to be the same thing every day. Spice it up with a little bit of variety there. If there's junk in the house, I can't control myself. Okay, so out of sight, out of mind. This is a practice I recommend just to start with, because you eventually want to get to a point where you start turning to other options when you want to snack, when you're feeling a little hungry and it's that weird time in between lunch and dinner. To start, don't have it in the house to begin with, or have it somewhere where you can't visibly see it. So if it's just sitting, right on your counter there, you're more inclined to grab it because it's right there. Maybe throw it up into a higher cupboard so that you can't reach it. Start with that. And then you're eventually going to find alternatives. So it's not about completely eliminating snacking or eliminating those small treats here and there. It's about giving yourself opportunities 20% of the time to consume those things. So, having that small piece of chocolate after dinner, or having maybe a small bag of like the Smart Food popcorns, or instead of turning to potato chips, we're turning to like the rice chips, something like that. Finding alternatives in the long term will help you kind of curb those junk food cravings. You do have to give your body a little bit of time to wean off of it. So yes, that is why I recommend the out of sight, out of mind practice to start. And then you can slowly start to have it in your house, but you'll be less inclined to grab it because you have alternatives available. And social eating. So yeah, sometimes in social situations, we have a tendency to overeat. We maybe eat things that are outside of our general nutrition or what we generally eat on a day-to-day basis. If you know going in that you have a social event coming up, planning ahead. So just a little bit, it doesn't have to be this extravagant plan, but if it's going to be, appetizers and drinks, maybe you're going to have a meal that encompasses those whole food sources. So your protein, carbs, and fats before heading out so that you're a little bit full. And that way you can just pick here and there on those items. If you are going for dinner or you are going for a meal, taking a look at the menu in advance so you can almost pre-plan what it is that you plan on ordering. Again, you're ordering something that works the best for you. So finding the best option that that individual place has. It's not about being perfect in those settings, but it's about finding the options that work the best in that situation. Okay, so I hope that kind of clarifies a little bit of the food-related habits that you find challenging. Again, it's going to take some time. This is not a one and done type of situation. You do have to consistently practice it. And, if one day it doesn't work out, the next day is a brand new day. So going in with a really positive mindset. With that being said, let's talk about the healthy plate method. And I like this method for a variety of different reasons, but the main reason is that it is one of the easiest ways to ensure that you are getting everything that you need in every single meal. So you can use any plate for this. So no matter where you are, if you are using a square plate, a circle plate, Tupperware, you can implement this. Now, this is to help us with things like portion control. So talking about how much I should be eating, do I need to count my calories? Do I need to count my macronutrients? Again, I'm trying to keep food super simple for everyone because we are very busy and not everyone needs to count their macronutrients or their calories. So this is a method in which you can implement literally anywhere in order to get everything that you need at each meal. Now, this is just the base. We are starting with this. And then depending on what your goals are, if it's weight gain, if it's weight maintenance, if it's to build a little more lean body mass, lean muscle mass, I should say, sorry, your plate is going to look a little bit different. But as the starting point, your plate is going to look like this. So one plate is one serving, and you're just going to have one serving of this. You are going to divide up your plate so that half of your plate, or 50%, is going to be filled with all of your vegetables. So this includes your leafy greens and, you know, an assortment of vegetables that you actually like to consume. Again, we're not talking about just salads. Find the vegetables that you enjoy eating. So we're trying to eat the rainbow. Find all the variety of different colors at your grocery store. Experiment with some new ones. It's a great way to get, this is volume eating because you can generally eat a lot more vegetables and they are essentially lower in calories. So you can eat a lot more of them in each meal in order to feel satiated. So again, our eyes look at it and we're like, wow, we have a really big plate of food and it'll be okay because your calories are relatively low. You're going to take 25% or a quarter of your plate to be your protein source. So a good way to measure this is using our hands. So one palm size or two palm sizes based on what your goals are is going to be your protein source. So again, if you are vegan and vegetarian, there are a variety of different options for you. But again, having that quarter of your plate be your protein source there. And then the other quarter of your plate is going to be your starchy carbohydrate source. So this is where your grains, your brown rice, your potato varieties, this is where that falls. So yes, I know potatoes generally fall under your vegetables category, but for the sake of the starchy carb portion of your healthy plate, we are putting potatoes into the starchy carbohydrate portion here. And then we're looking at about 1 to 2 thumb sizes of fat. So this could be your olive oil, your avocado, nuts, seeds, whatever it may be. Now, like I mentioned previously, you can implement the plate method anywhere. So when you go out to eat, on circular plates, square plates, and again, it's just a starting point to ensure that you're getting everything that you need at every single meal. If this is something that is really new to you that you're not used to, start with trying to implement one healthy plate method meal a day. Maybe it's lunch. And then once you get comfortable with that, add a second one. It's going to slowly trickle down so that the majority of your meals, or 80% of your meals, are going to look like this, while 20% is going to be that little bit of a treat there. Okay, so the healthy plate method. I have a question for you. Okay, have you ever logged your food, whether it be counting calories, counting macros, maybe just kept a food log in general? Have you ever logged your food? Let me know. Yes, I love it. I hope it worked out well. I haven't tried it. Okay, all good, all good. And no, okay, one across the board, it's all good. Okay, so for the most part, we know as human beings that documenting anything has some kind of a benefit to us. Now, food journaling isn't any different. What it does, it gives us a snapshot of what's really going on in our individual worlds of food and eating. And it also allows us to make some adjustments accordingly. Now, food journaling, it doesn't have to be overly complicated. Again, I'm not looking for, the counting of macronutrients. I'm not looking for the counting of calories. I'm not looking for you to pull out your measuring cups and teaspoons and all that stuff. Nothing like that. What we're doing here is simply inputting everything that you eat for at least a 2-week period to show some consistency and to see what's really happening. So again, there are 3 elements to this, and we're going to talk about those things. So we have our document, assessment, and addressing stages. So the document is taking a moment each day to write down everything that you've eaten for all of your meals. So breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, all fluids that you've consumed each day. This can be as detailed as you'd like, or as simple as you would like. You can simply write down the things that you've consumed and that's it. Or you can, if you really want to take it a step further, and if you have done this before, you can start to write down the measurements, but again, not required. Either way, what we're trying to build here is that habit of writing down everything you eat. Now, this process can be a little bit uncomfortable because when we document every single thing we're eating, it can sometimes bring a stark realization that maybe we're not eating the best right now, but there is always room for improvement. It's exactly why we do this. Being okay to face the good and maybe the not so good. So yes, if you do for one day have that treat meal, write it down so you can kind of see how many times you were eating out. And that's where the assessment stage comes in. Now, in your food log, whether it be online on an Excel spreadsheet, a Word doc, or maybe we're going old school and we're doing pen and paper, have a section titled Notes and write down how you felt after some of those meals or at the end of your day. Did you recognize that you felt a little more energetic after eating a meal or a specific food? Or did you feel a little more lethargic? Or did you notice some bloating after consuming a meal or a snack? Now, the assessment stage is also looking at your food journal as a whole. So you're looking at things like how many times did you eat out in a span of, let's say our food log is going to be 2 weeks long. How many times did you eat out? How many meals did you skip that you don't normally skip? And why were they skipped? What foods made you feel good versus what foods made you feel not so good? And again, it's just taking a look at your day-to-day life in the world of eating. And then finally, we're looking at your address stage. This is where the magic happens. When we address or deal with the patterns that we see in our food journals head on, we are in the stage of addressing and potentially making some positive changes. You're going to cycle in some new habits here and you will see some potentially positive outcomes. Now, like implementing habit changes, addressing your food journal is about making really small tweaks. So for example, let's say you notice that you are consuming a high amount of refined sugars in the form of candy and chocolate. Now, in your habit loop, the reward that you may be seeking is that sweetness of those items. And a small tweak can be the addition of fruit. So again, it's not going to be as sweet in the beginning, but as we slowly start to wean off the candy and the chocolate and switch over to things like a handful of berries, maybe it's some cantaloupe, watermelon, because the summer is on its way. A small tweak can be that addition of fruit to help curb that sweet craving. Again, like I mentioned, it's not going to be the same as the chocolate or candy in the beginning, but the more often you turn to those items, those healthier items, the more likely that will slowly turn into your new food habit. So whenever you're craving something sweet, you automatically pick a source of natural sugar instead of grabbing the candy or chocolate bar. Now, making those kinds of changes takes a little bit of time and some willingness to spend a little time to make those changes in the realm of food and eating. And that's what's going to provide you with a more positive outcome. It takes a bit of work, a little bit of persistence and consistency, but utilizing what you know about creating successful habit changes along with journaling your food or logging your food for a short period is what is going to help you propel you in the right direction. When we come to think about it, we spend a lot of time learning these skills for work, learning about the latest and greatest inventions, tech things. So why not allocate a little bit of time in investing in learning about our own personal nutrition so that we fuel ourselves appropriately to run at our most optimal? Okay, so when we pivot that mindset to think about investing time and energy into us to ensure that we are running at our best, that is a motivating factor for many of us. Now, the tie-in. We eat well in order to live, or in order to fuel and live accordingly and perform day-to-day functions, but it also allows on the cellular level for our cells to thrive and communicate in order to support us in performing daily tasks. And as individuals, what works for our bodies and what doesn't work will vary. So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach, but through a little bit of experimenting and documentation, along with the use of a short-term food log, we can see what foods work and what foods don't work. Now, we've gone through why it's important to eat well, keeping food simple. We looked at what whole foods are, how to create and start making food-related habit changes. We looked a little bit about the healthy plate method, especially if you are getting started in the world of changing the way in which you're eating. And then finally, the benefits of short-term food journaling. Again, keep food simple. So that brings me to the end of our Fundamentals of Nutrition workshop today. I just want to thank everyone for joining me, and thank you to Mitch for connecting us with the associates of the Hive. We are so excited to continue on with our Wellness Wednesdays and bring you a variety of different workshops on a variety of different topics that surround food, activity, and mental health. And so as a gift to you, we have partnered with 3 really amazing local companies, and we have discount codes for all of you to use. So True Local is our high quality meat organization, and they deliver quality meat right to your door. Take a look at their website. They have a really amazing variety of meats that you can order. And if you input your discount code there, you do get a select number of free chicken breasts with your initial subscription. Magnesium. Many of us don't get enough magnesium in the form of food, so we've partnered up with iMag that provides one of the purest forms of magnesium available out there. It is a spray that can be put into your drinks, or it's also topical, which is really fantastic. And there's a discount code there for you as well. And then finally, our newest partnership is with Fit It Out. They are a gym equipment organization, and for anyone who's building their home gym or needs access to things like setting up a rig, if you need barbells, weight plates, dumbbells, you name it, they will have all of it for you. We also have a discount code there for you to use. Okay. With that being said, does anyone have any questions at all for me before we head out here? No?
I don't have any questions, but that was really great.
Thank you, Charlotte. I appreciate that.
I actually just shared with my team that I'm going to start my food journal today.
Yep.
And if anybody wants to be accountable with me, then to let me know.
I love that. And Charlotte, if you ever need someone to take a quick look and give you some like tips and tricks and things, and if you want to have that discussion, feel free, we can connect offline, and I'd be more than happy to take a look at that for you.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you.
No worries. Okay. So if we don't have any questions, I just want to, again, thank you all again for joining me. I really do appreciate it. All of our information is up on the slide here. So if you do have any lingering questions that you would like to connect offline about, we can do that one-on-one. Thank you again to the Hive for having our recourse come through today, and we look forward to seeing you